In early 2023, various NATO countries pledged to provide Ukraine with main battle tanks. In this video we'll explore what has been sent and how these compare to their Russian counterparts. Now for the main battle tanks, the UK sent 14 Challenger 2 tanks, Germany sent 18 Leopard 2A6s, Poland sent 14 Leopard 2A4s, Finland sent 3 Leopard 2A4s, Norway sent 8 Leopard 2A4s, Spain has so far sent 10 Leopard 2A4s, and Canada has sent 8 Leopard 2A4s. The US has also pledged to send 31 M1A1 Abrams, but they're not going to arrive until autumn time. Now the first country to get the ball rolling with an offer of main battle tanks was the UK, with 14 Challenger 2s pledged. The training on these tanks has already been completed and the crews are now back in Ukraine. Now the Challenger 2 is a complete overmatch compared to anything that Russians can put out on the battlefield, and until now no Challenger 2 has ever been lost in tank-on-tank combat, with the exception of a friendly fire incident of one Challenger destroying another in error. It's proven itself to be incredibly well armoured over the years, with accounts from receiving multiple RPG and Milan missile hits, including one engagement in Basra where one was hit with 70 RPGs in a single sitting without being destroyed. Now for the pros, it's got heavy armour protection, with chop and armour system capable of withstanding a wide range of threats, including Russian armour-piercing rounds. Obviously it's got superior mobility and speed, with a maximum road speed around 60 km an hour compared to Russian tanks. It's got advanced sensors and targeting systems, including a thermal imaging system that provides the crew with enhanced situational awareness and targeting capability. The 120mm rifle gun can fire a variety of ammunition types, including armour-piercing, fin-stabilised discarding Sabot rounds, and high-explosive squash head rounds, with superior accuracy and range compared to Russian tanks. The Challenger 2 still holds the record for the longest tank-on-tank kill, with a shot of around 4 km. Now on the cons, the Challenger 2 is a light and heavy tank, and that can be said about all the tanks we're going to discuss, so this can limit its manoeuvrability in certain environments. Obviously Ukraine's bridges, a lot of them won't be capable of holding the weight of a Challenger 2. I mean, they're going to be very heavy tank, especially when up armoured. They can be 70 odd tons. The tank's also got a relatively high profile, which can make it more vulnerable to Russian tanks firing from elevated positions. The Challenger 2's rifle barrel, made up its effects against some types of Russian armour, is a smoothbore barrel would. Obviously with the smoothbore barrels there's more ammunition types available. But that being said, the UK have confirmed that they are sending depleted uranium rounds. And for the final point, I've added this for all of the tanks. Tanks' advanced sensors and targeting systems may be vulnerable to Russian electronic warfare and countermeasures. Specifically the countermeasure people are referring to would be some of the equipment on the newer T90s or T80s. Now these are so few and far in between, and whether or not the systems they have are capable of doing what they say they're doing is another question for another day. Now for the Leopard 2A6. Now I separate the Leopards as there's a huge difference between the 2A6 variant supplied by Germany and the 2A4s coming from the rest of Europe. Now the 2A6 model is arguably the most high-tech of all the tanks that have been supplied to Ukraine, and the main gun provides improved performance and penetration capabilities over the Challenger. While the armour is not up to the levels of Chobham, this vastly outclasses anything Russia could field. So for the pros again, they've got heavy armor protection with a modular composite armor system capable of withstanding a wide range of threats, including Russian armor-piercing rounds. High mobility and speed with a maximum road speed around 72 km an hour, which makes it faster than most Russian tanks. It's also equipped with advanced sensors and targeting system, including a thermal imaging system and laser rangefinder, which provide enhanced situational awareness and targeting capability. The 120mm smoothbore gun is highly accurate and has a superior range compared to most Russian tanks. Also, the Leopard 2A6 is a relatively modern design, which incorporates the latest advances in technology and materials, giving it an advantage over older Russian tanks. Now for cons, again back to the issue of the Leopard is it's a heavy tank, so it can limit its manoeuvrability, especially in extremely muddy conditions or going over bridges. The Leopard also suffers from the issue of having a high profile, so it could be again vulnerable to Russian tanks, if they're firing from elevated positions. You also have the same issue, it could be susceptible to Russian electronic warfare and countermeasures. And the tank's modular composite armour system may be more vulnerable to Russian kinetic energy penetrators than the Chobham armour used in the Challenger 2. Now, the Leopard 2A4, while it's nowhere near as well armoured as the 2A6 variant, the tank is still nearly an even match against the most common tank fielded by Russia, being the T-72B3. These were the tanks that were upgraded from 2011 onwards. Now, I say these are the most common fielded, as these have suffered the most losses when looking at Oryx's list of confirmed losses. Now, the B3s are fitted with either Contact 5 or Relict explosive reactive armour, depending on which version of B3 they are. Now, this may be explosive armour, or it could be wood, or even rubber blocks, depending on how bad the corruption is spread in Russia. I've seen both, where people remove these explosive blocks. It turns out there's a block of wood inside or a block of rubber inside. Now, the 2A4 was built to counter the original T-72s, and when building it, the Germans did a lot of penetration testing on their own T-72Ms as a part of the studies to decide what would make a good tank. It boasts decent thermal imaging and laser range-finding system that the majority of the Russian tanks do not actually have, and it is still a good tank, but it's not something that should be used as a spear tip on any coming offensives. Now, I think realistically, these should have all been upgraded to at least the 2A5 or 2A6 version before being sent to Ukraine. The 2A4 is shown to be vulnerable to to anti-tank guided missile threats in the recent operational usage by Turkey and Syria, with at least 10 tanks having lost and 5 of those attributed to ATGMs. Their military analysts have criticised these engagements, stating that Turkey had been using the tanks incorrectly, advancing on their own with no infantry support, allowing them to be hit on the flanks where they have virtually no armour. Now for the M1A1 Abrams. Now initially the US was going to supply newly refurbished M1A2 variants, but then decided to go with M1A1s direct from the reserves to speed up delivery. Now the Abrams needs no introduction. This tank has been up against Russian armour in numerous conflicts across the Middle East and has proven itself as an absolute beast. While many have been lost over the years, there are no recorded losses to enemy tanks. There have been many that have been destroyed or disabled by anti-tank weapons, usually strikes from the rear or lost to IEDs, but when used correctly the Abrams shreds Russian tanks it was designed to do. Now for pros, obviously it's got heavy armour protection with a combination of depleted uranium and composite armour based on Chobham, which provides superior protection against Russian armour-piercing rounds. Again, high mobility and speed with a maximum road speed of around 67 km an hour, which makes it faster than most Russian tanks. The Abrams again is equipped with advanced sensors and targeting systems, including a thermal imaging system and laser rangefinder, which provide enhanced situational awareness and targeting capability. A 120mm smoothbore gun, again highly accurate and has a superior range compared to most Russian tanks. And the Abrams also has a low silhouette and sloped armour, which makes it difficult for Russian tanks to target. Again, the Abrams suffers from the same issue. It's a very heavy tank, so it could struggle in certain environments. And we also come back to the issue of the sensors. It could be susceptible to Russian electronic warfare and countermeasures. And for the final point, the M1A1 Abrams is a relatively old design compared to some of the latest Russian tanks, and I'm talking the real new T90s, the real new T80s. It could give the Russians an advantage in certain places, though I doubt it. The M1A1 has proven over the years it gets the job done. Now the Challenger 2, the Leopard 206 and the Abrams, they share two key features that make them among the most advanced tanks in the world when compared to Russian tanks. Now firstly, they've all got hunter-killer systems, which are advanced targeting systems that enable the tank crew to independently search, detect and engage targets. Now these systems are composed of several important components, including thermal imaging camera, a laser rangefinder and a gunner's primary sight. These features allow the tanks to detect and engage targets in low light and adverse weather conditions, while also accurately calculating the required elevation and deflection angles for the gun. Now one of the key advantages of the hunter-killer system is it enables the tank commander to scan the battlefield and designate multiple targets at once while assigning their priority. The gunner can then engage the targets while the commander searches for further targets. This allows the tank to engage multiple targets simultaneously, giving it a significant tactical advantage on the battlefield. Secondly, all three tanks are capable of engaging targets while on the move due to their advanced gun stabilization and targeting abilities. This allows them to maintain their aim and accurately fire on the move, increasing their effectiveness and survivability on the battlefield. In comparison, Russian tanks like the T-72S have limited gun stabilization and targeting capabilities, which makes them less effective in combat situations. While they're still highly capable tanks in their own right, they lack the advanced targeting systems and gun stabilization found in modern Western tanks like the Challenger 2, the Leopard 206 and the Abrams. Now all this, added with the questionable ability of the Russian tanks even being capable of penetrating any of the three, means that if used properly they can be a devastating asset for Ukraine. Now these are three of the most advanced main battle tanks on the planet. They were designed and built to destroy Russian tanks. They're literally the epitome of quality over quantity, and if used properly they could cause massive issues for the Russians. But that is the big if. They need to be used properly, with proper support, because no tank is invulnerable.